So I want to specifically talk about a sequence of chapters that builds up and peaks to one of the most unexpected things. And there's a reason why it's so unexpected, because the build up for it is probably equally as high, if not higher, or at least perpetuated to be higher than what this unexpected peak would be. Now you're probably a little bit confused. What does this even mean? What are we even talking about? The situation or the moment we call the bang. It is a completely unexpected and curveball event within Chainsaw Man. Something that I don't think you would ever see coming, but its impact, its influence, what it means to the story, what it means to the characters is so incredibly massive that it actually changes everything. Not to mention the way it pierces your soul. It is 100% heartbreaking. For me, the quote-unquote bang is only as influential as it is because of the moments that come prior, and because what makes it so unexpected is those very moments and the escalation and peaks of them. So something that is super consistent with Chainsaw Man is how often things get escalated. Usually your peaks within stories would be rather consistent with one another, and they would slowly and gradually build up and tower over the previous one. And obviously your peaked moments within stories should never eclipse one another. One peak should never overshadow or deteriorate or make a previous peak pointless. So you want to try and keep them as separate as possible. Hence why the distance, and more specifically time, is needed. Chainsaw Man surprisingly doesn't do this. Instead, it goes in the complete opposite direction and gives you as many peaks as possible with a different variety of values. Even though it's pretty much utter chaos 24/7, the downtime is still just as important, if not even more impactful than the peaked chaos moments. So it's hard to really even draw a graph of what Chainsaw Man's reading experience is, other than just saying it's an experience, because everything is so constant and full on and back to back, and the value of all of it is extremely high. So it's up to you to kind of place your value on what you find important, what you find impactful, and what you find better than the other. Now, saying something is better than something else isn't a comparison of facts. It isn't saying that this moment or this peaked moment is better than the next one or the previous one. Once again, it comes down to how you value it, how you experience it, and what you take from it. This might sound redundant or a little bit confusing, but it helps kind of give the foundation of what the bang peaks on, because prior to it is what makes it so unexpected. Everything that comes prior is the highest of high, and it's not even the highest within the story, but at that specific time it definitely felt like it could have been the highest moment. The whole narrative was focused around this point in time. The whole narrative built its characters and pushed them in a direction to this specific time. Mind you, we just came off the introduction of the Darkness Devil, and that in itself was such a complete change of scenery and power that we have not witnessed before. It's something so powerful, something so intoxicating and overwhelming, that threw basically every single character that we know of or even care about in the firing line, put them right on death's door. And while a lot of them did meet their demise, the sheer amount of confusion that came with it, the sheer amount of chaos and unnerving nature that swirled around with one another, created this sublime experience, something that Chainsaw Man at that point in time had not provided yet. Instantly after that, we have the effects for it, what that chaos and unnerving nature actually gave birth to. And it's very specific in where it puts it, and it's none other than power. You see, after the Darkness Devil and that entire arc comes to a conclusion, your first and primary focus is on power. But she's not the same quirky, over-the-top, obnoxious individual that you've come to love. She is scared. She's borderline psychotic and in this stage of trauma repeating itself over and over again. That this experience with the Darkness Devil has rooted itself so deep within her that it's causing her to merge that experience with real life. Her trauma from it is making life difficult. She's overly scared of things. She's heavily connected with Denji and clinging on to him, using him as a comfort or support to get her through these moments that are very difficult. And because of this, relationship between Denji and power is very personal. It starts to grow even further, and we quickly come to the understanding that Denji does not sexualize power, which is one of the core identities that Denji actually has. That right at the beginning of the story, one of his biggest and most desperate desires or wants within his life was breasts, was human affection, was a girlfriend. So while they do have this very close relationship, he makes it known to us as readers that the way he sees it, the way he perceives power as an individual is nothing close to that nature that he desired. And this is because of the growth that they've gone through. This is because of the connection and the bond that they have formed. This moment right here with Denji helping Power deal with her trauma from the Darkness Devil is personal. It's intimate, but more so in a sibling type of way. Power is treated more so as a younger sister to Denji, whereas Aki is seen as an older brother. So you start to build this family dynamic between them, and this is very important because not only does it set the very emotional groundwork for the quote-unquote bang, but it also helps with the next event that comes after Power's trauma, which is Aki, more specifically the Gun Devil. You see, this situation with Aki and the Gun Devil also somewhat came out of left field. It was a curveball that I felt a lot of people somewhat slightly seen coming, but not to the emotional degree or impact that it would actually cause, the massive tidal wave of emotions that it would bring forth onto people, especially with how brutal, relentless, and unforgiving it truly was. But you remember how I talked about peaks being somewhat paced out? This is not the case for these moments. The Darkness Devil was a peak we haven't experienced before. Power's trauma is also another peak that's very important to the relationship being built between their family at the time. Aki and the Gun Devil is something the story narratively has been building up towards since the very beginning. It's pretty much what Makima has been pushing towards. So all of these peaks are starting to merge together, but they're never eclipsing one another. You still care about the previous moments and you still care about the current one, but the current one isn't overshadowing the previous ones in a negative way. If anything, they're paralleling one another. They're working off one another to give birth to this event and to make it as influential as possible. The Aki situation isn't meant to be a showcase of power, because we've seen that very same showcase of power not only within the Darkness Devil, but literally right before Aki comes into the picture. The Gun Devil actually appears and he wreaks havoc across Japan. The amount of death, destruction, and chaos that it causes is unimaginable, and there is no way on earth that Aki could peek over that power once again. So instead, it is strictly and purely emotional. Even though it is pushed forward with a very chaotic fight, the focus isn't necessarily the fight itself, which is the reason why what you see is the fight paralleling a snowball fight between Child Aki and Child Denji. These are technically brothers fighting each other, and Denji doesn't know how to deal with it. He's just spent his previous moments trying to help Power with her trauma, help her with the PTSD that she has, and now his older brother is no longer there for him. He has to confront his older brother. He has to confront Aki. So it creates this very emotional situation that Denji increasingly and very quickly doesn't really know how to deal with properly. So while he desperately fights, you see his emotions within that childhood snowball fight parallel increase drastically. And right at the end, you see all of his tears and all of his agony, all of his pain overflowing. Aki is lost. Denji has won, but the cost of it is once again unimaginable. Normally you would think this is the end, that there can't be anything that comes after this. It somewhat even feels like the ending of the story, even though the focus towards the Gun Devil isn't as specific as we thought it would be. But then we get the bang, and this chapter capitalizes completely off everything that I've talked about. And it is the only reason why it works so incredibly well, is because by every single definition you would not expect this to actually happen. What's important about this chapter is the state of mind that Denji is currently in. He's probably within the worst mental and emotional state that we have ever seen. This is a first for him. His experience with Aki has created this trauma, something that's so overwhelming for him that he just wants to shut everything off, that he doesn't know how to emotionally deal with it. So you see him trying to eat normal foods and nothing. Sometimes he'll even throw up. Where he finds comfort, however, is within the worst place possible, and that is Makima. So while he's in the house, while he's seeing the love and attention and the pure happiness that Makima gives to these dogs, he too wants a portion of that. He wants to escape any sort of difficulties that he has faced, any sort of emotional or mental struggle that he's currently fighting against because of Aki, because of what he's been through. In his own words, he just doesn't want to think. He would rather be a mindless dog that follows the orders of Makima Makima because he knows and has physically seen the love and appreciation that she gives them. Makima obviously uses this to her advantage, and the last lingering piece that somewhat connects Denji to his humanity is none other than power. So when they're walking towards the door and Denji has basically already accepted that he is just going to follow Makima as a dog, he portionally tries to resist. He tries to question why power is here, but quickly gets overwhelmed by Makima's sheer presence. That you can't talk back to her, that you can't question her authority. And you have this chilling and ominous walk that is filled with so much tension, but you don't know what's coming. You don't know what is about to happen. You just know that there's something wrong here. The option to open the door comes. You see Makima's face. You see that very symbolic door that hides everything that Denji does not want to see. A door that should never be open. So while he physically opens the door in front of him, questioning why power is here with a cake, and then realizing that it's his birthday tomorrow, you see her nervous and anxious towards the whole situation, holding a cake out in front of her. A surprise for Denji. And then you see her get killed right in front of his eyes. And it's not a knife or a bullet, probably the most horrific way to kill someone in front of your eyes. Using the infamous Makima bang and tearing a massive portion of power into two. At this point, I think we were all just shocked that did this really just happen after everything that we have just experienced, everything that we've just gone through, the amount of peaks and utter chaos. Did we really just witness that? Is this a dream? Is this a joke? Who in their right mind would do this? So soon, all of this has taken place within the confinements of 15 odd chapters. That's just absurd. What's probably the most difficult thing about this is that you knew the state of mind Denji was in right before this situation. And then you start to realize why Power's trauma or PTSD and why Denji taking care of her was so impactful to begin with. Why that family bond and relationship that has been built that wasn't sexualized was so influential. It's because it was all building to this moment. What it leaves you with is a Denji that is completely and utterly broken, that cannot comprehend what he has just witnessed. He, in his mind, has opened the door and killed Power himself. It's probably not even right to call it a state of shock. He's in a state of nothingness. The emotions that he didn't know how to comprehend with Araki is now 100 times enhanced thanks to Power. And for us as readers, it is probably easily the most heartbreaking moment within the entirety of Chainsaw Man. And it all happens within the span of 10 to 15 odd chapters, which comes off the back of The Darkness Devil. So what is the purpose of breaking down some of these concepts or themes that help build and construct and glue together the most infamous moment within Chainsaw Man? I guess for me, it's a better way to not only appreciate the literature behind it, appreciate the moment itself and what Fujimoto went through to get to this moment in time, but it also helps me realize that for me, this small section of chapters is absolute perfection, and I wouldn't want it any other way. So with that being said, that is basically it. And there is a lot of great moments within Chainsaw Man, undoubtedly. So I would love to know what are some of yours. There's a lot of fights, a lot of emotional moments. Maybe it is the Power moment. Maybe it is the Bang moment. Maybe it's Araki. Maybe it's the Gun Devil. So many different things to pick from. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you within the next one. Goodbye.